My name is James, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Joining us today are two speakers from Moxa, and we're going to be talking about optimizing wireless reliability in modern OT environments. The first speaker we'll have is Marty Wachi, who specializes in industrial cybersecurity, network management, and wireless networking. He has over 20 years of experience in the industry and has helped launch more than 1,200 networking and security products worldwide. Our next speaker is Mario Binown, a field applications engineer with multiple industry certifications and 30 plus years of experience in industrial networking and cybersecurity. I'm going to go over some housekeeping items before we start our presentation today. The webinar is going to be 60 minutes, including some time for questions at the end. If you'd like to submit questions for our speakers, go ahead and use that Q&A function in Zoom. You'll also see the occasional poll question pop up on your screen. We encourage you to participate in those. And also the recording will be shared so you can go back and watch the webinar on demand. There will be a survey after the webinar, and we appreciate your feedback on the presentation. With that in mind, I'll pass it off to Marty to kick off our webinar. Marty.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody. Hope you guys all had a good long weekend. Some of the topics we're going to cover today is I'm going to start off and just cover some of the security and industry drivers affecting industrial wireless, specifically Wi-Fi deployments that we're seeing. Give you a little bit of an overview of some of our messaging and products, specifically some of our latest and greatest Wi-Fi 6 802.11ax products. Then Mario is going to come and go into a little bit more deeper detail into the technology and spend some time going over the use cases that we're seeing for Wi-Fi. I think that'll be really important, and hopefully you guys will have some really good questions and we'll have some good discussion around that. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the background. So from a security perspective, if you've seen some of the security webinars I've done, I do like the annual IBM cost of a data breach report. This is kind of an infographic summary of some of the key findings. A couple of the things that I would point out is that, especially as it relates to wireless, some of the top attack vectors here is supply chain. So that's actually where the product is being compromised, either before it gets to you while it's being manufactured, or maybe like in the back end as far as how the cloud or updates to the firmware of the product are handled. This is something that's increasing, and if it keeps going at the rate that it is, you'll see this maybe be the number one attack vector next year. The second one I wanted to highlight is that root cause of attack. So obviously you've got a pretty high 51% in terms of malicious or criminal attack, but surprisingly, the human error at 26% is on the rise as well. And where this is, I think, relevant to our discussion today is using network management tools to help you automate and scale really helps eliminate that human error that is being compromised by some of these bad actors. So those are the two things that keep that in mind as we go to the next slide here. So if we talk about the Moxa security solutions model, so that first one, supply chain. So all of the Moxa products, all of our suppliers are 62443-4-1 certified, which means that we have a secure development lifecycle process in place to help mitigate attacks of the supply chain. But if it is compromised or there is some type of problem with the product, maybe a bug that's being exploited, that secure development lifecycle process helps us address that. Obviously, there's the product that we'll talk about later today, but the other piece is the secure management. So this is, again, that 26% root cause of attack where this is being exploited from the standpoint of human error. So having tools, network management capabilities to help automate this, and we'll talk about this briefly a little bit later, especially with wireless and our MXV1 and MXV1 wireless add-on, definitely help there. Having education partner programs like we're doing today, as well as the back-end support advisories. This is kind of the overall security model that we have. that we believe gives us a really good foundation um, to address kind of the security concerns of a very broad set of customers. So from a security framework perspective, Moxa plays in a lot of different verticals from industry automation, energy, IT, marine, semiconductor, and rail and others. These are some of the popular security frameworks that are out there. I think the big takeaway is two things. One, you can see that from all of these different frameworks, Moxa has really accumulated a very broad set of security best practices. But more importantly, you might see your framework up here and go, well, that's great. It doesn't apply as much to me, all the different quadrants. But interestingly enough, going back to that IBM report, if you look at the next slide here, the area that a lot of the frameworks are kind of weak in is in that lower right quadrant. And that lower right quadrant happens to be supply chain and network management, which, if you remember the discussion with the IBM cost of a data breach, what did we say? Supply chain and human error or lack of network management and automation is where the bad guys were kind of attacking. And this is regardless of what framework you guys are under, or maybe your framework like E187, 186 does focus on it, or even some of the NERC ones. Just keep that in mind that this is the area that the bad guys are coming after us, and to just keep that in mind and understand how the framework that applies to your particular vertical may or may not address this. If this is something that, again, you guys would like more details on, you can pop a question into the Q&A. We might be able to cover it later or as a follow-up. Having said that, let's jump into our first poll question of the day. And the first question is just trying to get a feel for what mix of Wi-Fi technologies are you using today? If you guys could take a minute here and enter Wi-Fi 4, 802.11, Wi-Fi 5, which is 802.11 AC, Wi-Fi 6, which is 802.11 AX, or Wi-Fi 7, which is the latest and greatest 802.11 BE. Or if you don't know, that's a great answer too. But if you could just pop that in here real quick, that would really help us out here. Let's just give you a couple more seconds to answer that. I still see people coming in, so let's give you a few more seconds. It's still updating, so that's good. Okay, it looks like it's kind of stabilized. Let's go ahead and share the results. So it looks like a lot of you are in the older Wi-Fi 4 camp, followed by Wi-Fi 5, as well as I don't know, which is kind of to be expected from an industrial perspective. But I'm glad you guys are here for the webinar because we're going to teach you about a lot of things as to why you may be wanting to look at upgrading, especially from a security perspective. Okay, so let's keep going then. Okay. So if we think about like industrial wireless solution drivers, so a couple things that come to mind from this infographic. So the first one is enterprise upgrades and security. So many of you may be responsible for the OT side of it, but the IT side may be driving the Wi-Fi portion of it. And that one is, being driven hard by Cisco and Aruba and others, trying to get folks on the latest and greatest things. There's better security, things that Mario will go over in his section. So that upgrade treadmill is pretty aggressive. So that's one thing that we're seeing. Obviously, more integration with IT, and that's kind of related to the first one. As you look at Wi-Fi 6 and especially Wi-Fi 7, WPA3 is becoming more and more a requirement, especially with Wi-Fi 7. That may be something that your IT folks may require, which the older devices may not be able to get on the network anymore. So that's something that's happening. On the OT side specifically, obviously, we're seeing more scale, more automation, which is also helping us, reduce some of that human error. both from a manufacturing and management perspective. But some of the things that are really kind of exciting about some of the newer technology, and Mario will go into this in more detail, is for those of you that are on the Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5 technologies, the reliability of the newer technologies is so much better. It does make it a lot more predictive and isn't prone to some of the problems that you may be even experiencing now, or for those of you that haven't dived into and taken the wireless plunge, may be seeing. So under that, obviously there's the preventative maintenance alerts, which are some of the network management piece, shortening any downtime. And again, there's certain technologies that Mario will cover in his section that will go into that in a little bit more detail. Okay, the next one is just kind of what's transforming the industry. So starts off at the top and we'll go down. So reliability. So there's a lot of things that have happened in some of the newer technologies to really improve the reliability, improving the deterministic nature of wireless. Um, from a configuration perspective, trying to do things with an improvement from a network management perspective, visualization, taking advantage of machine learning and AI. So some of like the things like our mesh architecture, which we'll talk about later, which is self configuring and self-optimizing and self-healing, is kind of an example of that. Related to reliability, obviously the roaming and gaps and drops for wireless, especially for things that are moving, is definitely a problem with some of the older technologies. The newer ones with some of the newer features and capabilities all but eliminate that, I think, now in some of the new deployments. And then, just being a little bit greener, trying to be more efficient, trying to take advantage of, not having to wire everything up and all of that. It's something else that we're seeing. So, and if you have any questions about that, drop it into the Q&A. We're going to start now and talk a little bit about the Moxa messaging and products. So, as James mentioned earlier, one of my many hats at Moxa is I am the product marketing manager for all of our industrial wireless networking products. So that means our Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6 products, as well as our public cellular and private cellular gateways. We're going to focus for purposes of this webinar on the Wi-Fi 6 because there's a lot of really exciting things there. You can see that one of the things that for those of you that are on Wi-Fi 4 or 5, maybe you're using Moxa, maybe you're not. But one thing to note here is our network management for all of our wireless products, all the same, all the same umbrella, all the same tools. So I think that's super important. You can also see here that, as you kind of go um, into the Wi-Fi 6 product, one of the things that we did is two things. One, we kind of bifurcated the series. So we've got a value series, which are the guys here on the bottom, which is the 1000 series. And the 3K, 4K is kind of the more advanced, higher performance series with supporting our latest Aeromesh version 2. So again, we'll cover some of these things. As I mentioned before, a lot of the products starting with Wi-Fi 5 also support WPA3. So that's a security requirement that we're seeing as folks are using AX or BE types of deployments that IT is kind of pushing, whereas some of the older Wi-Fi 4 products and some of our competing Wi-Fi 5 products may not support WPA3. The other thing to mention at a product level is all of the Moxa APs and clients do support NAT. So that's something that can also help with some of the deployment. If you're connecting up a cabinet or a vehicle, I think Mario will cover some of this later in some of his examples. You don't need a separate router or NAT appliance. The APs can do it themselves. So that's kind of an important thing to highlight. If we look at kind of like from a solution perspective, where are we kind of strong? Where are we seeing a lot of good uptake in terms of use cases? So we are very strong in industrial client applications. Obviously, you can see here, all of these products can be clients, but especially the entry-level series, due to their form factor, size, make them really good solutions for client types of applications for Wi-Fi, as well as now with the one with the 5-port switch, makes it really good to be able to connect multiple devices in a cabinet or AVG without then having to also purchase a switch. To that end, I think our turbo roaming, which we'll talk about here in just a second, which also works with non-Moxa APs, is something that folks have used quite a bit, especially to try and improve some of that reliability and deterministic nature of wireless networks. We also have mesh networking now with our Wi-Fi 5 products and Wi-Fi 6. So that's something that, again, we'll talk about here in just a minute. But that's something that folks are also very interested in. Having the 62443-4-1, which again, like I said, that's the secure lifecycle supply chain, as well as the 4-2, which is the product being able to be configured for a more secure environment, super important. And then the network management piece that we have for all of our networking products, but then specific capabilities for wireless in general. So if you guys have any questions about that, again, you can drop it in the chat, and we can cover it later in more detail. So turbo roaming. So what this does, it allows a Moxa client wireless device to be able to have a little bit more stable connection, have a little bit quicker handoff than what's available through just normal standards-based Wi-Fi 4 or Wi-Fi 5 technologies. It does give you a much faster transition time of less than 150 milliseconds, which is why a lot of folks are using our turbo roaming capability from a client perspective. So you can see here, some of the advantages. It's also AP agnostic, so it works with Cisco or Aruba APs, which I think is super important, or anybody else for that matter. But helps with better signal management and helps you minimize that data loss. From a mesh perspective, this is something that we introduced about a year ago. We are coming out with a new version of it here in a few months that will improve its capabilities and scale. But basically, it really is a way to more cost effectively deploy these networks where you may not be able to get cabling to all of them. Makes it a lot easier from the standpoint that they're autonomous and self-configuring as well as adaptive. So let me give you an example here. So this is kind of how it works. You basically have your portal or your master at the head end. You've got all the other APs here that are essentially kind of like a tree structure. The maps or mesh nodes, they will automatically self-configure themselves and can reconfigure themselves if they were to lose a connection, and they can talk to, let's say, another mesh client or mesh node in the tree. And then obviously you've got the green station clients endpoints that are transmitting the data. So what does this look like in terms of features? So, we've got basically this aero mesh roaming that doesn't require a controller. You just use the APs that you have. It gives you a wireless backhaul connection using the 5 gigahertz range, so a little bit shorter distance, but higher throughput. The nice thing about this is that you can do daisy chaining, star or tree structures for this. It supports a multiple of different types of security. Right now, it's limited to 5 hops, but with the new firmware update, that's going to triple actually, as well as the node capacity is going to go up quite a bit. So we're going to continue to see advances here. When we look at the Wi-Fi 6 family of products, again, this just gives you an idea of what some of the models look like, radio configurations. The smaller guys come in both client and AP options. You can see some of the new advanced support capabilities that we have. We've got Wi-Fi, or sorry, not Wi-Fi. We've got 62443-4-2 certification coming in the future. And the advanced APs do support Aero Mesh. So this is just an example of the outdoor version of the product. Some of the IP68, so it's weather sealed, waterproof for outdoor use. You've got the indoor version, basically exactly the same insides except smaller footprint, not as robust a enclosure, so it's only IP30. And then you've got your different clients that you can basically use as either a smaller AP or, in the case of the client version, something that you can connect with, say, an Ethernet type of device, make it wireless, a cabinet, AVG, something like that, which again, Mario will cover, I think, some of those use cases in just a second. So if you've got any questions about this, definitely drop it into the chat here, and we'll try and cover it when we get to the Q&A section. Okay, so we got another poll question here. So one of the questions that we had was, in terms of who is operating and maintaining the wireless infrastructure in your organization, trying to understand what breakdown of IT, OT, is it both? Because obviously some of the strategies that you use to try and extend the life of these networks may be different, but it also helps us figure out how do we, better organize some of the content. So let's just give you a couple seconds here to answer this. Looks like we're still getting a bunch of responses come in here. All right, looks like it's kind of settling. Oh, no, there's still some more coming in. Okay, let's give it some time here. Okay, looks like it's kind of settled down. So let's go ahead and share the results. So it looks like here that the overwhelming majority IT is running the infrastructure, which is kind of what we've seen. A few of you are running it yourselves. Some of you it's in conjunction. So definitely, for those of you that are kind of dependent on the IT side, be interested to know how many of you are kind of seeing this very aggressive upgrade cycle to AX, BE, because that is something that we're seeing that's kind of forcing a transition to newer clients. All right, let's keep going here. All right. So I just got a couple more slides, then we'll hand it over to Mario here. So from a network management perspective, so we talked about the human error in the IBM report being something that, can create an opportunity for bad actors to take advantage of compromise of the network just due to human error. So being able to take advantage of network management, some of our network management tools, definitely help there. Obviously, we have products for a different webinar to deal with the direct attacks. Some of the drivers that we're seeing um, in terms of network management for OT customers is a lot of regulation, whether internal or federal, and reporting mandates. Obviously, there's the threat itself of threat actors. There's that OT IT convergence that's been going on for a while, but that's something that we're definitely seeing to accelerate, especially in the wireless section. And that's probably because based on the poll results, you guys are seeing the same thing that we are, that, IT is kind of driving things, modernization of the framework. And we're starting to see more insurance and financial pressure where insurance for some of our customers are a little bit easier with some of the um, having been able to demonstrate that you're taking some of these steps. So with that, we do have other resources for network management. Basically, what I just wanted to say here is that for our MXV1, which is the platform that most folks use, we do have a wireless add-on module for that improves the capabilities of MXV1 specifically for wireless. And what it does is it's basically, think of it as a feature add-on. It's a perpetual license, just like all the other licenses for the network management system. But basically what it does is it gives you kind of these 5 different features: dynamic topology, so you can see stuff roaming around. You can see roaming playback, which is kind of like your black box, which gives you several days of history, so you can go back and kind of revisit things. Obviously, a dashboard. Wireless device summary gives you a lot of information about the products, RF, and then your dashboard that gives you kind of the overall health. And this is just kind of what it looks like here. So let me just go ahead and build this. You can see the different pieces of where the roaming, where the device summary is, and the dashboard with this. So if this is something you're interested in, we can definitely schedule a demo. Drop a comment in the Q&A and we can definitely follow up with you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mario, and he's going to start to give you an update on industrial Wi-Fi 6 and 802.11ax.
All right, thank you. Let me get my camera up here so I can say hi, everybody. There it is. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to take you guys through some interesting information about wireless technology and what path it's gone on. And first, we're going to start with this typical wireless architecture. And I'm sure you guys have, most of you guys have seen this before, where you have the star topology, your mesh topology, and then a point-to-point, where wireless is used throughout, I mean, industry and, IT or OT side. It definitely gives you some benefits with each different topologies, and it definitely scales in the areas that you need it to. So we're going to cover a couple of these, but I just wanted to set that out. First thing is I wanted to talk about is the industrial wireless standards. Like, in the beginning when Marty was going through the different standards out there, you get the Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, 6, and then 7. A lot of you guys are on the 4 still from the poll questions. That's something that is going to definitely ramp up because just the enhancements in not only predictability, like Marty was talking about, the speeds, and then just the being able to have that data be there and not lose it, so that way you can actually connect to it. And then Wi-Fi 5, you'll see that it actually increases the speed, used in a lot of different cases, like AGV control as well. And then Wi-Fi 6, which we're going to cover in depth after this, on the different technologies that actually allow that technology to operate, and how we are getting to get that predictability up. And then Wi-Fi 7 is definitely going to be something that's going to be very industry. It's still not quite adapted. I mean, there's a lot of when you talk about your SOHO or your consumer based, you'll see that it be adopted there more. But when it comes to Wi-Fi 7 in the industry, in industrial use, it's going to be a little bit before that actually comes. But the promise that's out there is going to be huge. And now, of course, we have that Cisco red bullet right there. They're defining the end of life on a lot of the series that we just talked about. 802.11n, which is your Wi-Fi 4, your Wi-Fi 5, and then even looking at the different types of 11ax, but which is interesting because they're actually referring to the standard when it comes to WPA3. Yeah, WPA2 is definitely appreciable. I mean, this little note here saying that it can be cracked within an hour. A lot of things that got to be in place for that to happen. But I've already seen it that industrial Wi-Fi, a lot of RFPs are coming out that way, where you do need to have WPA3. And the nice thing about it is all the Moxa products do support, the newer ones, the 5 and 6 does support WPA3 as well as WPA2 for that migration progress. Next one. Okay, here's another one of those, really cute diagrams that AI generated, I guess you'd say, for the different types of connectivity. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit more than just the slides itself. With the advent of security, right, WPA3 and others, it's definitely going to slow down that network if you don't have this type of mobility implemented. And there's a lot of alphabet soup here. You have 11R, 11K, 11V. And what I'm trying to attempt to do with this slide here is to give you guys what those acronyms mean, what those protocols actually help with when it comes to a wireless network. First one is R. It's been around for some time. I mean, all of these really been around for some time, but they're really actually um, seeing its benefit because of 802.11ax, because of the devices are being able to recognize that topology and that information. So for when it comes to R, it's impactful because the AP is handing off. It's doing that pre-authentication before it hands off to the next AP. So this is really beneficial to keep that quick roaming, the mobility part of Wi-Fi happening, just like your cell phone. Won't go into that. Won't go into the cellular operations, but very similar to here, where it's actually making a connection before it breaks it. Now, K, the next one here, the neighbor reports, it's actually understanding or receiving from the AP the information about the different APs that are out there that I can select from. So instead of having to enumerate that information, the client is being able to just give that list and then pick and choose from what was be the optimal connection to. And then finally, the 11.V, where you're doing your transition management, where it's actually sensing, oh, I have a better roaming experience between this AP and this AP. So it's actually giving you that transition before where I'm actually going to be connecting to from a load capacity. So all three of these mechanisms really benefit that opportunist and predictability, being able to connect to your devices, which is really coming to focus when it comes to 11AX. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so I'm going to do a couple of just highlights, and this is kind of my what I'm going to cover next is basically when you look at AX from Wi-Fi 5, average throughput, more throughput is going to be 4x. So this is really driving the market to really upgrade to AX, because now that you're going to have this faster speed, folks, your equipment can get in and out or off the wireless network faster, and that gives you ability so that way more things are available and less data loss, right? Especially when you have a lot of time sensitive applications running. It introduces a new QAM, quadra amplitude modulation. It's a lot of words, so we pronounce it QAM. 1024. That really provides a lot, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. Multi-user MIMO. With AC, it was only on the download, and now it's on the upload and download. And then there's another one that's very similar to that, and that's another modulation technology, or in encapsulation is OFDMA, uplink and download link. So now you have two options to be able to provide that multi-user MIMO. So in the past, AC and N, a wireless client could only talk to the access point one at a time. So now with AC and now AX, you can talk to the access point can talk to multiple devices at once. And then the next one is the target wake time, TWT, which is a mechanism that provides the ability to save on your power requirements, because it's not always transmitting, it's not always receiving, it's only doing that when it needs to, and based on that technology. Take a look at the next one. Now, I threw this slide in there just to kind of give you guys a good slide to be able to see what the channel use is out there for this open, technology. I mean, open frequencies. I mean, it's not licensed. So in the 2.4, very limited. You have 80 megahertz of channels, but that's rarely ever, never used, never seen, because really you only have three channels that are non-overlapping, 1, 6, and 11. And in most cases, you're only going to be using one at a time, so it's only going to be a 20 megahertz channel. And now in the 5 gigahertz, you can see that there's much more. In the middle there, you have what they call DFS, which is dynamically frequency scanning, because you have an issue with you're sharing those frequencies with satellites and for air traffic control. So those are actually there. And if you're in a building and you don't have that kind of signal, you can take advantage of being able to use that. The main thing is I just want to be able to show you that in the next slide is going to be able to see that you have different options depending on what you need in throughput. And thank you for that slide right there. Perfect. It increases that data rate. So, and how you do that is by spatial streams. With Moxa's equipment, we actually run a 2x2 and 2 streams. So we have 2 antennas, 2 transmit, 2 receive, and then 2 streams on that. So you can get a lot of throughput depending on how many channels how wide your channel is, and based on how many streams that you are on the same channel, on the same frequency. So this is where you get those astronomical speeds down at the bottom there, where you're really not going to see, because 160 megahertz on channel 5 is really where it's going to be for special case uses. Where you're going to see in our industry, in industrial, it's going to be 80 to 40. But it is on its way. So go to the next stream. Okay, now how are we able to get that more data? We're just cramming more data in there. The electronics are getting to the point where we can do a lot. I mean, AI is only fueling this, where we can get a lot more data crammed into that frequency, that RF that's being generated in the air. With Wi-Fi 6, we have 1024 QAM modulation, and you can see in that little graph there, it gives you a really good comparison on, well, okay, we get that much more data. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but instead of having 10 bits of data, now you can actually have 8 bits of data when it comes to the where it came from. So it increases it by 25%. Next slide. The other thing that's really increasing the capacity, not more or less the bandwidth of your network, is being able to interchannel all your different frequencies. And this is being done by almost similar to, if anybody knows about WDM, when it comes to different frequencies of light in a fiber. This is very similar to that, where now in Wi-Fi 6, I'm assigning a color, a number, to the same channel. So now I can have more sub channels, so to speak, within one BSS. So as you can see from the diagrams here, you increase from one where you only had a certain amount. Now you can go to several and use those channels a lot more effectively by reusing that with the differentiating by the different colors. Next one slide. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the ODMFA, orthogonal frequency division multiple access. So this gives you that ability to be able to transmit to multiple units at once instead of having to wait and turn. As you can see in the graphs that I got up here, ODFM is like you got 1 user, 2 user, 3 user, 4 user. And then with OFDMA, now you can actually talk to several units during the same time stop using resource units. It definitely, the amount of technology that's being able to be utilized is going through the roof. So being able to understand this is I mean, for the access points and the clients to be able to understand this is really driving the throughput and the use case and the increase of throughput through it. Next slide. And again, this is not to skew to really skew the ladder. Um, you can actually use what they call the AFC introduced a downlink from access points from multiple users, and they actually use a different trigger, not to be confused with OFDMA, and they can be used both at the same time. So this results in a better benefit is faster uplink and responds much more experience with the user. Now, lastly, we're going to take a look at the power savings mechanism target to awake time. These mechanisms negotiate between the AP and the broadcast to be able to provide that times when to wake and aggressively focus on the improvement. So as you can see in the timeline here down at the bottom, that the interval between, they actually have an interval. Okay, hey, did I wake up soon enough? Or do I need to take a look at and change that interval to be able to provide that next time I wake up and see if I have information that I need to be provided. And again, that's another industrial benefit, being able to save on power. Now let's take a look at the use case that we have. We have a few of them in here. Now, as you probably, a lot of you guys, I mean, this is a classic one where you actually have an AGV that is, or an AMR, and it's running around and being able to provide a low powered, very small footprint device. And if you do need to have multiple Ethernet connections, the AWK 1165C is the perfect client to be able to handle that. Being able to have that built-in gigabit unmanaged switch in there. And then it does, of course, support that OFDMA to be able to provide that high speed, low latency connections. Next slide. Next case scenario would be the in high definition X-ray imaging. Most of these compact, you need to have it in a very compact enclosure. Wi-Fi 6 for space constraints. Again, being able to have that certification, IEC 6061 for medical level, EMC for that low reduction of EMC, and the interoperable reliability between the devices, and then being able to provide that high rates of bandwidth offloading, because these are, in this high definition, these are really large files, and being able to provide that offloading. Next slide. Now this one is about using our AeroMesh product that Marty spoke about earlier, being able to dynamically switch between devices depending on the bandwidth and the throughput, and then if something gets in the way, depending on in the environment that it's in, be able to switch and reheal itself, right? High bandwidth, and then being able to mount these devices in different locations, as den rail or surface mount or in enclosures. And then now here for again, this is very similar to that other one, being able to eliminate Ethernet cabling, because now you're doing it with wireless, because now the wireless is very high reliable, right? So you really don't need the wire anymore. You can do it through the air. And then having AeroMesh is giving you that ability to dynamically reheal itself. And again, going back to the compact rugged side of the device, only adds to the being able to use it in this kind of environment. Next slide. And then lastly, being able to use our outdoor, the AWK 4262A, in this kind of application is in mining, where you're going to go from one to another, and you need to have that robust, in some cases, very harsh environment where they need to be able to operate and serve that bandwidth. Like Marty did mention earlier, we have a software upgrade coming out that's going to actually provide a lot better throughput on the backhaul Wi-Fi side. So the Aero Mesh, instead of, I don't know if you guys noticed that little caption on every hop you do lose your bandwidth, but in our next release you will not. It only be a very lower loss of connectivity. And I think that brings us to the end here.
Thanks, Mario. So
any questions?
Just a couple things to wrap up here. So we did cover a lot of different topics, some of which we didn't get to cover maybe in the detail that we'd like to. We do have what we call Moxa Solution Days, where we've got a bunch of different topics that are kind of like a best hits of 2026, where from a security, strategy, compliance, architecture, operational resiliency, we've got different content that we could share with you guys. So if this is something you're interested in maybe taking a look at or signing up for, definitely scan the QR code there. There's a way that you can register for that. For folks on the call, depending on if you're an end customer or partner, we've got a bunch of different resources here that you'll get. You've got a wireless set of solutions, links to our network management, technical support. One thing that we'd like to know is if any of you would like to be contacted for any type of follow-up, for any of the questions that you may have asked, any of the content that Mario and I may have gone through, or you just have questions. You want to take advantage of Mario's expertise and talk to us a little bit about specifically your particular use case and see if we might be able to help you guys. Definitely let us know here, and we will reach out to you after the webinar for some type of follow-up. Or if you're interested in discussing maybe a solution day or some other type of consultative opportunity, we'd love to hear from you guys. So definitely let us know. We'll leave this open here for a few more seconds. All right, it looks like still got some coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds here.
Marty, why don't I'll just leave that up for a little bit longer.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and start with some of the questions that we have teed up here. Let me go ahead and ask the first one here. It says, what type of apps require Wi-Fi 6, or how do you see Wi-Fi 6 ramping up in manufacturing environments?
Mario, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. So what type of apps? So one of the use cases that we had there is for high definition X-ray. Anything that has to do with almost real-time communications is where we're actually seeing those applications require a Wi-Fi 6, that higher bandwidth. And not only higher bandwidth, but lower latency, because if you're doing a real-time application, especially when it comes to X-rays and high definition, you're going to want to be able to see that in real time.
The other thing I would just add real quick to that is, Mario spent a lot of time covering like just how much more data we can get through the newer technologies. So for those of you that may be on older Wi-Fi 4, Wi-Fi 5, we are seeing clients where the amount of bandwidth that's available from a frequency perspective is kind of saturated. So by going to some of these faster technologies that offer more faster communication, more channels to be able to communicate, you're able to free up some more connectivity, even though it's still the same frequencies that you're using. It's just a lot more efficient. So we are seeing customers that are kind of running out of frequency bandwidth there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, we got another one here. What is the range of the mesh nodes?
Well, that's an interesting question because it really comes down to, going back to what frequency our backhaul is on 5 gigahertz. It's not as far and usually line of sight as opposed to 2.4. However, with directional panel antennas, you can definitely get that um, distance increased. And with our new updated software, you'll be able to go from hop to hop, a lot more hops. So it depending on, the environment that you're in, again, and your line of sight, you can do a lot of things with that because now you can do one hop, from your MP to all the way down your all your nodes, you can get pretty far. But like you're saying, wasn't it going up to 20 nodes, Marty?
I believe so, yes. It's gonna 15 to 20, it's at least
Yeah.
triple.
Well, good question. Thank you.
Okay. Another one here. Does the mesh solution eliminate the need for private 5G?
Another interesting question, but a good one. Yeah. You know, 5G provides a lot of things, and we would need another hour to talk about that, right? But I could say, yeah, in some instances, sure, you could use our mesh solution instead of having to deploy a whole private 5G network. Yep.
Okay. Another one here is what are Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz AP's advantage with Moxa? So,
Uh,
what are the advantages of the Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz
I,
APs?
I say that we have adopted the standards and we adhered by those standards, and I think you can really take advantage that no matter what client you're using, our APs are going to be able to work with. So
I think to add to what Mario is saying is like again, the technology IEEE perspective
yeah,
is all the same, but you look at just kind of the product itself, right? Just being a lot more ruggedized than some of our competition's products. Things that may not be specific to 5G, but how we've gone ahead and packaged it up, having the warranty being included, things like that, are little intangibles that probably make it a little bit more compelling.
yeah.
Here's a very specific question. It says, I'm installing clients in a very small control enclosure on a moving hoist. Are there accessories for antenna mounting and cables?
Absolutely. Yep. Um, you know, needless to say, I mean, we're not an antenna manufacturer or a cable manufacturer. We do OEM them and we do sell them. However, I have a lot of third party antenna companies and cable companies I work with. So we can definitely make a really good, depending on your application and environment. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Mario. What is a typical distance between nodes in an industrial application?
It's all about environment, right? At the end of the day, a node could be, several feet away, or a couple hundred feet away with panel antennas. It's really going to depend on your environment.
Okay. Um, our IT department controls our wireless infrastructure and we do not use Moxa. Will turbo roaming still work in our environment?
Yes, absolutely. Um, One of the things that we do with our turbo roaming is it's a scanning ahead technology. It's very similar to 11R and K that is out there. We enhance it. We actually have utilities to help you tune our turbo roaming so that way you get the optimal handoff between APs.
Okay. Thanks, Mario. We got a lot of questions. Hopefully, we could get to all these. But here's another one. Your mesh technology looks very interesting. How hard is it to set up and configure?
I'm a little biased, but it's pretty darn easy. I mean, I've actually worked with other manufacturers on their mesh product. Um, a few of them there I won't mention, but I was very surprised how easy it was for our solution. You set up the MP and then all the nodes that are connecting to it, and then it'll actually dynamically switch. If it wants to do a star topology, it'll actually communicate. We have a special protocol that we're actually communicating to the clients, to the points, the access points of the nodes that are participating in that mesh, and if need be, if one actually moves, which these a lot of technology they are moving, they'll actually attach itself to another one instead of attaching it to and go into a daisy chain topology. So it's a really cool technology. I was very impressed with it.
Next question here. Is there a charge for a solution day?
No, there's no charge for the solution day. I mean, maybe we should. Mario's pretty smart there, but yeah, no, we give away his time to help you all in your different environments. If it's something you're interested in, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to help you.
Thanks, Marty. Yeah, another question here. How can I receive more specific information on Mox's wireless solutions?
So a solution day is a good way to start. But if you haven't been able to schedule one, or I'd start with the website. There's a lot of good information there off of moxa.com under our industrial wireless solutions. If you're looking for more technical information, there's a lot of good documentation also there on our support site. And folks like Mario are there to help answer those questions.
Great. Another question, how many radios does the Moxa AP/client have?
Mario, you want to take that one?
Oh, okay. Well, when you say radios, I mean, depending on what model is, our 1161 and our 3262s, the 1161s or 65, those have one radio, but they can be configured as either 2.4 or 5. Now, in the 32 62 model and the 4262 model, those actually have two radios, and which can actually be configured for 2.4 on one and then 5 on the other. I have had some configurations where we had 5 on both or 2.4 on both, and they're actually using panel antennas to point them down a track, on a rail application. So those are possibilities. I think that answered your question. If it not, go ahead and reach out to us and we'll definitely clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. Does Moxa have a wireless controller?
We do on the rail side. It's called our WAC, WAC. I think it's 3000 series, or it's on our website under rail. If that's something that you guys want to take a look at, where it can actually have the configurations and provision your access points in the field, as well as do what we call turbo roaming, but at layer 3 as well as layer 2. So there's a lot more advantages with that controller. But we do have in the works for a controller on our industrial side, so that I don't know how far that out is, Marty, but it's something that we're definitely looking into, or on the horizon on our roadmap.
Within the next 12 months.
There you go.
Nice. All right, guys. I think that's going to be all the time we have for questions for today. Thank you, Mario and Marty, for all the information shared today. There's going to be a survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate if you could give us your feedback on how we did. So this wraps it up for today. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.